Is your base slowly being covered by farts? Well, let's capture them and turn them into power. Now, I'll have you guys know this is a new sort of video format, kind of a new show in the Oxygen Not Included realm that I'm doing here. It's called Blueprints, or Blueprint Labs, whatever I'm going to call it. It's basically the same thing we've been doing the entire time, just a little different. So the difference here is we're going to follow a traditional product development process. So, concept. We've already talked about it. We want to capture farts and turn them into power. So, over here in the comment section, there are many of you guys that have actually commented this in the past. William is just one of the more recent guys to actually comment this. Yes, I did do a search through all my comments for the word fart, and this is what has come up. William says, any thoughts about a fart-powered base? And then he's even doing the research for us. I looked up the flatulent tag on the wiki and said that a duplicant with the tag of flatulent is going to output about 5 grams of natural gas, or fart, roughly every 10 seconds. So it should yield around 300 grams per duplicant of natural gas per cycle. Okay, so first things first, we need to understand the fart rate of duplicants and verify that finding. So if you've got a little bit of a problem here, what can we do? Is there any indication anywhere that I can see that's going to tell me exactly what this thing is putting out? I mean, they're just farting this whole time. All right, I don't have any indication, so we're gonna have to trap them in a pod and count the gas. But that's fine. Once we have a fart catcher, we'll be able to do just that. So then once we understand exactly how much we're going to get, we can figure out just how much power we get out of that. There's also been other recommendations as far as actually to run a base completely off of farts. So we'll be able to see just how much of a valid idea that is today. So there's our concept. Now, as I was doing a little bit more research, it turns out that a fart catcher is a real thing because cows put off a lot of gas. So as it turns out, somebody's already developed a fart pack for cows in order to reduce greenhouse gases. And just like in the real world, here inside of Oxygen Not Included, natural gas can be destructive to our environment. One of the main problems that we have here is that the natural gas will settle below oxygen and suffocate plants. Because a plant, has a certain air pressure that it needs and certain atmosphere that it needs to grow in. Natural gas is doesn't help plants at all. As I've been thinking about this and how I want to solve this, there's about 5 things I need to answer. How much? How does it flow? How can I sense it? How can I, store it? And how can I use it? So let's take a look at some of the equipment that I have available to me. Well, how much is going to be the result of a test? So how does it flow? We can answer that question. So digging out a big square up here, you can see that this is a nice big vacuum and there's nothing in it. So what I'm going to do inside of here is I'm just going to brush in different gases and we'll see exactly where everything settles out. No, where's my gas? So if I paint all the gases vertically, each and every one of them. So I've got oxygen, carbon dioxide, chlorine. These are kind of the common ones that you'll see. Polluted oxygen, steam, but I don't think it'll remain steam for very long, and natural gas. So if we let this settle out, we should be able to see where natural gas is going to end up in this mix of many gases. Look at that, it's like a rainbow. That's kind of cool. Now, one of the cool things we have available to us now is a gaseous element sensor. Okay, so what a gaseous element sensor does is it becomes active whenever a selected type of gas element is detected. Another sensor that we have is the gas pipe element sensor. So what that does is it works in line with the gas pipe to figure out what is in that pipe. And then we can use that to sort out, the different valves and whatnot. Another sensor that we have is the gas pipe element sensor. So as a pipe runs through this, it will detect whether, what elements are moving through there. So if you have a certain one, you can then probably use a valve to open that up and redirect the gas into, something that'll store it. So you can see here the gases are still kind of starting to figure out where they're going to go. It looks like carbon dioxide is settled down to the bottom. Chlorine and natural gas are still floating around. We'll come back to that. That's still figuring it out. Another way to sort gases is by using a gas lock. Now, the reason you can do that is because you can't have two gases be in the exact same tile. So, for example, we have some carbon dioxide here and here. And if we open this up, there's really no way for oxygen to get, sorted to get through here because there's oxygen on this side and there's oxygen on that side, but carbon dioxide is blocking this. So watch what happens even when I crank up the pressure of oxygen over here. So I'm going to put 2 kilograms of oxygen over here. Look at all this. And even though the carbon dioxide is only 500 grams, it's still holding back the oxygen. And the oxygen over here on the left is a fair bit lower. I'll use the destroy button just to pull a vacuum over there. How about that? But you can see carbon dioxide is still making a gas lock. So if I come in here and I do carbon dioxide and I paint in a whole bunch of it in like this spot right there, you can see that it's going to want to travel around and it can continue to build up in this area over here because that's where it's going to settle. So we can just let carbon dioxide move around, move around, move around. Just for the sake of it, let's go ahead and do chlorine because chlorine is a heavier gas. So it would want to go down here if possible, but since the carbon dioxide is there, you can see chlorine's over here, carbon dioxide, the pressure's going up, oxygen's still over there. Gas locks are one way to kind of sort out what you have. So you can see how things have settled out over here. We now have carbon dioxide on the bottom. Right above that is chlorine. Natural gas is the third heaviest gas that is commonly found in your base. On top of that, we have oxygen and polluted oxygen. Those tend to, you can see they kind of trade places a little bit, depending on what's around. They're about the same weight. Here's a better view of the oxygen and where it settles out. And then at the very top is hydrogen. Now, if they ever introduce helium into the game, obviously helium will be above everything else. It is an element that you can spawn, but it isn't in the game just yet. They added a tinkle sound. Are you kidding me? Oh, this game. Just to touch on this gas lock thing one more time, because it isn't exactly like this. What I'm talking about, is if we were to have something like this, and then you have an obvious low spot where a certain type of gas is going to try to store in there. So that way, oxygen or whatever, your gas flows across this, the heavy stuff settles out, and then oxygen continues on. That's usually the arrangement that is used for storing food whenever you have some of that. So you can see here we've got carbon dioxide and we've got chlorine above that, and then the oxygen on top of that. Now I'm not going to do that, although you can create natural low spots inside of your base in order to catch heavier elements. So we understand how the gas flows. Let's talk about how we can store it. 2 ways to store gas that I know of is going to be a box here, essentially, with a gas vent that goes inside of it, or a high pressure gas vent if you want to get an even higher pressure. There are some ways of half dipping these vents in water or a liquid, and that way you can continue to increase the pressure higher and higher and higher, although the game continues to try to sort of patch that stuff away. So I wouldn't necessarily count on that. And you can also do that same sort of thing for a little while if you have like mixed gases that are low enough pressure to where the vent actually allows you to move that gas in there. However, you do run into a problem where some of that gas will eventually get deleted. So storing inside of a sealed container is definitely one option. And then we'd need another gas pump or something like that in order to, take the gas that's inside of here and then pump it out to use it. However, we have another thing that's just been brought into the game, and that is a gas reservoir, which is pretty much designed to make this sort of thing obsolete. So the gas reservoir can store up to 150 kilograms, and it just has an in and outside, so that's pretty awesome. Unfortunately, at least in this current build of the game, there is no automation overlay for the gas reservoir, which would be pretty cool. I wish they had one. So there's a key difference between an enclosed volume and the gas reservoir is that I could take an automation sensor inside of here, an Atmos sensor, and only activate this system once it reaches a high enough pressure. I'm still going to use the gas reservoir today because it's new. Last thing we need to answer is how am I going to use that? Well, there's really only one piece of equipment that runs off of natural gas, so that's pretty straightforward. It's a natural gas generator. So now that I know this, let's go ahead and try to build ourselves a fart catcher. So I'm going to give my duplicants a little bit more space to go and roam around and, visit some shine bugs and whatnot, because that's a little bit more of a realistic scenario. Okay, so first things first, I need a natural gas generator. I'll go ahead and put that over here. Obviously, as I run a generator, it has to store its power somewhere. So right next to that is going to be a smart battery. The reason I'm using a smart battery is because I can use the power intelligently and turn the thing off when I don't need extra power. So an automation wire runs between the generator and the smart battery, and it'll become active when it reaches a low percentage of, when it reaches 20% capacity, and then this thing will turn back on. Now, I know natural gas likes to flow down towards the heaviest locations on my base, but just above both chlorine and carbon dioxide. So if we take a look at my overlay here, you can kind of see I've got a little bit of carbon dioxide here, and then some natural gas, and it's floating its way around the base. So I'm going to dig out a nice low spot, and inside of here, I'm going to put a sensor. However, it'd probably be a good idea to make this low spot near some area where there's a lot of traffic, because that's where duplicants are going to be going through quite often. So there we go. Now I've got a spot down here where a lot of gas can find its way down here, and we can actually deal with it. Another piece of equipment I'm going to need up here next to the generator is going to be a gas shutoff valve. I'm also going to need a gas reservoir in order to make this thing happen. Okay, so there's one variable I didn't really account for yet, and that is the byproducts of the natural gas generator. It gives off carbon dioxide, and it also gives off polluted water. So I have to deal with both of those so that they don't become a problem. The way to get rid of carbon dioxide is either a terrarium or a carbon skimmer. Now, luckily for us, a terrarium, gives off oxygen, and it also consumes carbon dioxide. And it does that nice and efficiently. So I'm going to go ahead and use one of those. Now, two ways I know of to convert polluted water back into clean water is either with some fish. There are some fish that actually do that. Or with a water sieve, which is the more traditional method. So now I have one of those. As far as the water, how do I want it to get down there? Probably something like that. Not even. Doesn't matter. You don't really want standing polluted water if you can help it. If I were to make this really efficient, what I would do is I would just use a mini liquid pump. But you don't have to use that. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this terrarium down just a little bit, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that clean water that comes out of here, right? So it comes out and it goes to a liquid vent. And now that it's clean, the terrarium will automatically suck that up and use it. So the water goes into the sieve, gets cleaned, comes right back out, and will be converted into oxygen. So the output here for gas is carbon dioxide. So you want that to flow over here like this, and it's heavy, so the carbon dioxide is going to want to fall down right where the terrarium is. And probably just to make this a little bit better, I'm just going to get rid of solid blocks and rather use airflow tiles to allow the oxygen to kind of move out of the way and let carbon dioxide find its way to the bottom. Because once again, we know how it flows, right? Okay, so we can see over here that I've been able to pretty much capture all of the heavy gases in one spot. I've got a little bit of chlorine down here, a little bit of carbon dioxide, and floating here, there, and everywhere is a little bit of natural gas, like this one. So I think I need to make this one spot wider, just so my dupes can actually path around. And down here, what I want to use is that gaseous element sensor. Now in total, there's 3 gases I have to worry about. So I got to be able to get carbon dioxide and chlorine out of here. Otherwise, they're just going to fill this low spot and I won't be able to sense the natural gas. And then obviously I have to be able to sense when natural gas is there. So when any of these three become active, well, then I have to turn on a gas pump. So for this setup, because I want it to be relatively efficient, I'm just going to use a mini gas pump. And it might be better down here, it might be better up there. I don't know exactly. Now here's kind of a tricky part. I got to be able to combine all of these into one signal that says, yes, any of these have become active. Or what I could say is, if it's not oxygen or polluted oxygen, then turn it on. Because those are the only other gases that will ever possibly be down here. So I can actually reduce the amount of sensors I need. So it'll look like that, right? So this thing will be on when it's neither oxygen or polluted oxygen. So polluted or oxygen. Now all of this stuff requires power, so we're just going to plug that in. And like every system ever, we need to generate a little bit of power to begin the system, or to get the system to run in the first place. All right, so I have a pump here that can really pick up many different types of gases. So obviously I'm going to need a couple of gas filters. So this first one, since it's going to be the most common gas that I'm probably going to sense, is going to be carbon dioxide. The second one I'm going to sense is going to be natural gas. And then the last one I want to sense is going to be, chlorine? Now, if you don't have chlorine in your base at all, then you don't have to worry about that. So I just take the outputs of those filters into the tank and into, that vent right there, so the carbon dioxide gets sucked up and turned into oxygen. And then I run the output of the tank to the valve that I want to be active whenever the generator becomes active. You know what? Since I already know what that is, I don't need the valve at all. So I'm going to get rid of that. We'll save ourselves a little bit. So if I don't sense that it is any three of those gases, then I'm just going to put it out there so I have a high pressure gas vent. And if you have miniature pumps at this point, you should be able to have high pressure gas vents. Takes a little bit of plastic. Again, like everything else, that stuff needs power as well. So plug it in. So obviously I'll be able to store chlorine, and one of the good pieces of equipment to use up chlorine is the ore scrubber. So that's under refinery. Where are you at, buddy? You know what? There's another thing we can do if we don't have a need for chlorine at the moment. Let's say you're not using the ore scrubber because you cannot figure out what tab it's under. Utilities? There it is. Let's try to use one of the new pieces of equipment, which is a bottler. Again, what? Oh my gosh, what tab? Canister filler. There we go. I like it. We're using the new stuff. All right, so there's my prototype. Now, let's go ahead and just take a look at what research is required, and what we're actually going to need to build this stuff. Well, under research, in order to get to the reservoir, how far do you gotta go? You're gonna go to industrial storage. Oh, all of that. But hey, it gets you the sensor that you need. Now, we also used advanced automation in order to do the OR and the NOT gate. So let's do that stuff as well. The natural gas generator is under the fossil fuels button, so okay, we gotta do that research as well. Yeah. What else did we use? We did not use any of the improved ventilation. However, that is the alternative to the industrial storage, where you just use a volume to store a certain gas, which is far easier to get to than industrial storage. My personal hope is that that does not stay up here so high. I kind of think these are a lower tier item than what we're actually looking at there. Honestly, I think that they're more in line with like the smart stuff, which is right here. Personal opinion. We also have the air scrubber system. No, we don't. We don't have the carbon skimmer. We didn't use that. What we did use was basic farming. Okay, so where was the scrubber for water? There's like a lot of things in here. Oh, there it is. Distillation. So I used a water sieve. So where's the little pumps? Yeah, little pumps. Now this is one of those things that's definitely not needed, but we did use miniature pumps. So that's right there. And that also gets us the plastic manufacturing. If you don't have plastics, then just run with the normal pumps, which is down here. So that would just be that gas pump right there. So you can build this blueprint quite a bit easier than how I built it. But I think that was useful. Gives us some sort of idea of what tier in the game you need to be at in order to actually build these blueprints. So the difference between building this simple and building this in a more advanced state is plastic manufacturing in this right there, and also this entire line. You wouldn't need to research that. So rather you would focus on advanced automation, fossil fuels, some basic farming. Obviously you're going to need filtration and distillation, which is a lot of things that you're going to pick up no matter what, because it's needed to survive in the colony. So there you have it, analysis complete. Let's go ahead and run the first test here to see how well the fart catcher works. I like this, it's a nice little format. So another reason I'm working on this sort of new formula is because I want to apply it to some of the 3D printing stuff I've been doing. And this is my first actual, ready for production, I guess, part that people can make and throw on their Ender 3 3D printer here. So you can see this hot end assembly upgrade really solves one of the problems, which is the unintentional part cooling that the original unit has. It's also quite a bit lighter and allows you to really go to much higher temperatures. So I can do everything up through polycarbonate on my Ender 3 now. And this right here is just a really dope print. Look at that. The point is I want to be able to turn that into a show and, be able to share that with people. So keep an eye out for that. I also have a second channel, Watch It Print. And that's part of my bigger strategy as far as me trying to go full-time here on YouTube and all of that stuff. I know you guys saw some advertisement recently. Don't hate me too much. I do have to figure out how to make a profit here. So I will definitely do my best to make it as least painful and as much beneficial, I guess, as I can make it. All right, so let's run this test. Two things I'm going to need to understand here is, one, how much natural gas can we capture? So that's one of the results I want to get out of this. And, how well does the system actually work? Hey, what are you guys doing? You guys are just farting together, clapping your hands. No, get out of here. Oh no, what? Duplicants are totally bugged. They're just super happy. I love it when they do this. All right, I have to reload it. I've also been playing some other games that I hope to introduce to the channel at some point, hopefully when I have enough time to do so. 2 Point Hospital I've been playing the other day. Obviously we still have Factorio, RimWorld. Oh, what's another one? Oh yeah, Frostpunk. I was gonna give that a try. Okay, so the first thing obviously I wanna get here is carbon dioxide. Yep, and then natural gas. And then I'm going to sense chlorine as the last one here. And it'll be important to understand just how much gas I'm able to process here. So this is one thing that I'm not so sure I like. The mini gas pump doesn't really move a lot of gas. However, I'm still using the gas filter a lot to process, what gas is going where. So if I can combine gases together so that I'm doing more than, 10 grams, and then that would be good. I guess it is what it is right now. Okay, so here goes a little bit of water. We can see that that's moving into the sieve, and the algae terrarium hasn't done anything, and I have not produced enough electricity at all. That right there should really be like this. That way the gas doesn't struggle to find its way into the vent. I'm also going to dig this out, so therefore there's more room for all the gases to kind of flow around the system. And what we can see here is that, things are going where they need to go. Carbon dioxide's flowing into the room, where it will be useful. Natural gas is making its way over to the natural gas generator. And the natural gas generator is off right now because we're powering it up with a manual generator. Look at all this natural gas I have. Look at that. It's pretty good. Now, because I have some natural gas, I'm going to go ahead and turn this to 10%. So we shouldn't get back on the wheel. You know, the natural gas generator should be able to catch itself. And we'll see if it has I doubt it's going to have enough power to self-power itself. That would not make sense. If we look at the automation, you know, it is... it's there and it's back, it's there and it's back. It does seem to pick up a lot of oxygen, which makes me think that the pump should be lower. So I'm going to move that pump down to the very bottom, and we'll see how well that works. There we go. Now I got a storage locker, a little bit of water on it, and that'll keep it from letting a bunch of gas out. All right, so here we go. Did I run some? I already think it just ran, but I want to see this thing work. So there we go. It's running. It's filling it up with power. Polluted water is now running back over here. Clean water is running down to the terrarium. And it's giving off a little bit of oxygen. Those must be some really wet farts when you stop to think about it. Now, from the looks of it, there is not enough water flowing into this in order to deal with all the carbon dioxide that's going inside of there. An alternative to that is one of those self-cleaning toilets. So you'd have a lavatory that runs to a sieve, and then that sieve runs back to the lavatory. But if there's an overflow, then that flow would go out over here. Okay, rather than just talk about it, let's just do it. So how that looks is something just like this, right? So water flows out through the sieve and then comes back out here, and it wants to go through this bridge first. So it always refills that toilet, and then otherwise, if there's an overflow, then that overflow goes out over here. Oops. And then once again, you don't screw it up. What you do is use a bridge like this. And then you put a manual generator down here because you don't want to test it. Yes, there you go. But then, of course, you need a little bit of water to kick the thing off. So you do that number. Once you have a full flush, you should be all good to go. Maybe you want that a little bit further back, actually. So take this liquid bridge and run right like this. So that way you get a little bit more of a charge going into the bathroom. Now we can build up a little bit more liquid. So I've pretty much cleared out all the chlorine inside of here. There's really no point to running this thing. So I can use a really simple just gas valve. Doesn't require any power. And then just put a vent right there and leave that open, because that'll be oxygen. That'll make the system a little bit more efficient. We'll see if it actually is self-powering or not. The other thing would be to sense the liquid down here so that I only run it whenever I have a decent amount. And I might be able to do this, where I run it through a couple of gas bridges to combine the actual grams of oxygen on top of each other. Okay, so here goes the toilet. So the polluted water came out over here, and then it just has recirculated back around. You can see how that worked? And then a little bit of extra water is now flowing up over here and dripping onto the terrarium. I'm having to do some things here to allow oxygen to kind of flow around a little bit more. The pressure was so low that it wasn't really compressing the gas down here to where the pump is. All right, you know what this blueprint is missing? Is that when you have to clear out a terrarium, it's polluted water. So it needs a bottle emptier over here, and that needs to be for the polluted water. Whenever I get some of that. All right, so you can see that my base now has plenty of oxygen inside of it at a pretty good rate, 1.5 kilograms. The liquid system does work, where you kind of get a little extra that goes around here, and that terrarium kind of runs, does its thing for just a little bit. But I don't think it's around long enough to really get rid of this carbon dioxide. Maybe. I'm going to have to let this thing run for another 10 cycles or so, and then we'll be able to look at the reports and figure out how much natural gas has found its way through the generator, and then figure that back to see just how much natural gas we're actually getting out of these duplicants. Okay, so as I've been watching this over the last couple cycles here, I can see that carbon dioxide is overflowing out of here, and then it's going back down, and that just keeps running through the pump over and over and over again. So it's not efficient at all. So what I need to do is I need to get rid of this terrarium. It's a nice idea, and I know that it works, and I've used it a couple times in the past, but I don't think it's the right piece of equipment for this blueprint. So what I want to use is a carbon skimmer. Now, carbon skimmer takes in clean water and outputs dirty water. So that means I can just completely get rid of this equipment down here and just not even worry about that element. And that also means I get rid of this vent. Oh, and probably some of these buildings down here. Now, I usually hook up a carbon skimmer to an Atmos sensor because, you know, you only want this thing to run when it's, let's say, above 500 grams. That way it's efficient. And then as far as the plumbing is concerned, it's a very simple thing. And like many systems before, we're going to use a liquid bridge because we're adding more and more water to this system as we, you know, process more and more natural gas. So let's get this right. Liquid pipe. So the clean water goes in there, the dirty water goes out like that. But if we want to overflow, then it's just going to go down, and let's, for the sake of it, put it to a new piece of equipment, which is a liquid reservoir down here. And we'll see just how much clean water we build up. What is wrong with that thing? What? Okay. Ooh, good. I got another flatulent, so that's 4. Just go ahead and take a look at the reports here. So for yesterday, what I want to see is the power added, but from the gas generator. We can see we got 47 kilojoules that day, 55, 70, 58, 67. So between 50 and 70,000 kilojoules is what I was getting for the last couple cycles. And that's fairly consistent. There are a couple days where it's a little bit lower. All right, so let me run this for a few more cycles and see what happens here. See if we can get the fart catcher system up and working well. All right, so I've let this run for several cycles now, and you can see just how much power I'm getting out of the natural gas generator, 87.5 or so. Here's the results. So the average was 90.7 kilojoules of power, which is actually quite impressive. How that calculates out into natural gas terms is that on average, I was able to harvest 10.2 kilograms of natural gas. So roughly 2.5 kilograms of natural gas per duplicant. Comparing that to the original calculations we saw here, I think the reality here is that this is actually quite a bit more effective than what William had originally thought. And why he was trying to do that, he was trying to figure out just how frequently the duplicants fart. Well, as it turns out, we really don't have to do that if we just do a direct test here. So yeah, it's actually quite effective. If you have a bunch of flatulent duplicants, and it doesn't take that many, you can harvest a pretty decent amount of power. Now, here's the catch. The catch is that it takes power to harvest power. So the true difference here is that I still needed to use the manual generator in every single cycle. So unfortunately, it's not a self-powering system, at least in its current configuration. If we made it a little bit more efficient, as far as only running this pump when it absolutely needs to, and only running the skimmer when it absolutely needs to, same with the liquid pump, there's a good chance that this thing could be efficient enough to where it would be a self-powering unit. Oop, forgot my webcam. All right, so let's wrap this thing up. The experiment, essentially, that we did here does show that it is possible to make a fart catcher And this fart catcher technically just really protects your base from heavy gases such as carbon dioxide, natural gas, or chlorine by having a pump placed somewhere down low. Now I've got some other arrangements that I've used for other purposes that, produce a little bit more oxygen than this one, but this is just one system here. The way I have it set up here, unfortunately, it does cost a little extra power to, run. But there are ways to make this a little bit more efficient. However, if you view this as just kind of a piece in the bigger puzzle, all of this system over here, as far as the natural gas and wherever you're getting that natural gas from, the only part that's really doing the catching is this right down here with the sensors and the pump and the filters in order to go where it needs to go. The rest of this can be, bringing in natural gas from other sources into this area in order to be processed. And therefore, not only are you protecting your base from carbon dioxide, doing something with any rogue chlorine that gets into your base, but you're also making a fairly effective system for your natural gas generator. However, we would probably want to keep this thing cool because your outlet for the natural gas generator can really benefit you from a thermal perspective. Rather than creating a lot of heat, you can actually cool this thing down and cool your base down with it. So there's other blueprints that we can get into, but I think it's a fairly effective system, and it was an interesting little experiment. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little episode here of Oxygen Not Included. If I've earned your subscription, then thank you so much for that. Stay awesome. Peace. Brothgar out. By the way, you know what would be kind of fun? If the text loom had a fart vest in it. Think about that.